to be a homeschooler. And if you're not organized, there's great hope, because I was not at all.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
It's almost a trait learned.
It
by homeschooling. Like, I can't believe how much I've grown as a homeschooler.
Yes.
I'm like, this was good for me.
Like
I
you
needed this.
had to become
I went from the
self-disciplined.
crazy creative, everything we're gonna learn through art. And I'm like, no,
Right.
no. You know, so it's just so
Math and a
Yes.
butterfly.
Yes,
Right,
but
right.
then you learn, okay, there is great need for organization and structure. Like, it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's interesting, because one of the things I've thought about along the way is, like, preparing for this, I was like, and I've talked with Jennifer about this, is there a right and a wrong way to homeschool? And I think there's a yes and a no, because it depends on what part of it you're talking about. But before we get into any of that, Jen, I'll have you go ahead and talk about your curriculum, which actually, I'll say this real quick, because I'm going to be running a business and homeschooling my kids, I started to panic. I was like, how in the world is this going to happen? And after I talked with Jen and some of the curriculum that she uses, not necessarily the books, but I started to realize that I had a lot more freedom in when I could do things. Like, oh, well, these are in book format. If we're on a long drive for 2 hours to visit my sister-in-law, who's, like 45 minutes to an hour away, like, that gives us 45 minutes in the car. We can bring the books with us. They can do certain things like that. So she put me at ease, and she's also my neighbor. I love her. I have 2 of her kids in my class too, which is awesome. But go ahead, Jennifer, you can talk about her.
Yeah, I would definitely repeat everything that those ladies said. That was beautifully said. There are so many options, and it really can be overwhelming. And you really do need to take your time, like Allison said, and not, if something doesn't work, then throw it out. I think we went through 4, maybe 5 math curriculums before we found one that didn't make my daughter cry every day. So that's okay, because we don't want crying every day. But when I first started, I am not a creative, like, oh, I want to have fun. No, that is not me. I was like, I need a schedule. I need a plan. Like, I want curriculum that I can open up and they tell me what to do. Like, I don't, and that's what I ended up with. So I also adhere to classical education like Hillary does. We are not part of classical conversations, but all of our curriculum is what they would call classical education. So some of the buzzwords that you'll hear are like traditional kind of school at home options, which is more, books and workbook kind of thing, like probably what a lot of us grew up doing in school. There's Charlotte Mason, which classical education kind of pulls in some of that, but that's a little more free and creative and student-led. The unit study options, like Hillary mentioned, where you're taking one topic and kind of investigating that. I've never done that, but there's that option. And then the classical education. So I ended up with classical education. And I don't know if you want me to like list what I use, but
yeah, you can make mention. I think that'd be a good idea. I mean, we know, like, Hillary does classical conversations. You do part of the
I do.
Catholic.
It's called Mother of Divine Grace.
Okay, yeah, so that's a classic.
It's classical also, actually.
Yeah.
It's interesting because classical is
It's
kind of
gotten
unusual.
broader, I think. Like, there's a lot more, that classical covers. So
Okay.
yeah.
But you kind of put your own thing together, is what I feel like. Like, you didn't go, you kind of picked and pieced out the pieces together.
Yeah, I did a little bit. I would say like for kindergarten through 4th grade. And a book that I really, really love and I recommend to everyone is called The Well-Trained Mind. And it kind of takes you through, it describes the different types of pedagogies out there and in educational philosophies. And that's definitely classical education though. But they talk about how kids learn and different ages, how their brains are different, how they develop and how they learn. And that just really spoke to me, that works with my brain. And the other thing I wanted to mention is you have to find something that works for you and works for your kid, and what works for one of your kids may not work for another one of your kids, or differently. I really don't like to reinvent the wheel. Like I said, I don't want to be creative. So if I find a curriculum I like, I really want to make that work for all of my kids. I don't want to buy new stuff and learn something new. But I have noticed that, my one kid can do even if they're using the same curriculum, My one kid can sit at the table with chaos all around her and do it. My other kid can't do that. She needs it quiet, or she needs, something else. So just keep that in mind too, that it's got to work for you and your kid, and all the kids are different. All the kids are different. But anyway, for kindergarten through fourth grade, I really love the Well-Trained Mind for most of their core curriculum. So their reading curriculum I love, although I did use a little bit of My Father's World as well, which is very well loved by many people. I just used the one year of that. And then, I like writing and rhetoric, which is also classical education for writing. The Well-Trained Mind grammar is phenomenal. I love it. Their history, story of the world is phenomenal. I love that. After fourth grade, they don't have or they didn't at the time, I think they've developed it since then, a middle school curriculum. So I do Rod and Staff for grammar for middle school, and that's a Mennonite curriculum. So there's a lot of things about farming and that kind of stuff. So get a little education with agriculture too. But writing and rhetoric, that we've continued to use that. They go K through 8th grade, I think, for that. Math UC is what we ended up with math. We tried Horizons. I think I don't remember what else we tried. But my son also did the first grade of Becca math, and I liked that as well. For middle school, I love Knotgrass history. NOTGRASS, Knotgrass history. I can't think of anything else.
Do we know the ages of the children that we're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
That would really be very
My-
helpful.
Yeah, let's get to that in just a second. I just wanted to touch on one more thing before we start, because I want each of you guys to kind of give us, a little bit of background in just a minute. But I know so I have kind of two more hot topics. Socialization is always a hot topic. And then for me, I think about siblings, like how to structure a day. I don't know if you guys have multiples, but if you have multiples, like you got a whole different thing going on there. You got different grades, you got different, personalities, which you would in a classroom setting. But then you have the sibling rivalry, which kind of gets involved there too. So maybe, is there a way like that you structure your day to kind of help with the flow of grades and sibling rivalry? We'll start with that one. That might segue into socialization a little bit. But let's just start with that and see where we go.
I laugh because I think about my 4-year-old son who all of last year snuck around to all the girls' work and ripped it up. That's what we dealt with last year. And that's what it ended up being though for last year. They got, we figured it out, and I got to structure where they were and what time. But what I learned is last year they really learned patience. Like we worked on some character issues with my older girls and forgiveness and all that. And that was one thing that I've loved is being able to work on character alongside of my kids. And no better character can be built than with siblings. Like they really, they can test each other. So thank goodness he has gotten better about those little mean streaks. And so this year he's actually going to be in classical with us. They start at 4, and I think that's going to give him like the ability to feel like involved rather than on the outside of school days. But what we learned is like my now 13-year-old loves doing math at 10 o'clock at night. Drives me crazy because I want my brain to shut off by then. I don't want to be parenting or monitoring or anything, but she's doing excellent at doing math at 10 o'clock at night. And so, and the baby's in bed. Well, he's not a baby, but the youngest is in bed, so she doesn't have to worry about him, distracting her. And I just have realized that the rhythm changes as they get older too. She just functions great at night. Another of my children gets right up. Actually, it's Lily. She's 10 years old. She sets her alarm. She gets up and she does her work with no siblings having to deal with. Like they've all really learned how they learn best. And I have 2 who like to do their work together. We have like a 3-set computer, and so they sit down together and they do better being able to talk the whole day, or a couple hours that they're doing their work. So I think for the sibling thing, is it takes time to learn how everything's going to work best. Like it was definitely that's another thing. We're foster parents, so we've had 9 kids in and out of our home the last 5 years, and our structure is constantly changing. Constantly changing. So that was the beauty of homeschooling, though, is that we were able to pause, do what we needed to do to get our family dynamics in order, restart, and we've had a different family unit for 5 years. So, but we couldn't have done that without the homeschool model, I think. It just was a blessing. But yeah, as far as the siblings go, I think they learned, like I said, Lily knows I'm gonna get up before everybody else, get my stuff done. Grace is like, I'll do it when everybody goes to bed. Like they've learned, and I don't think they would have known that about themselves.
Right.
If you're constantly doing the same thing every day. And there's a place for traditional school too. Like anytime you have a foster child, they have to go. So we're used to the public school system as well. But I love that the kids who homeschooled have been able to learn how to work around the sibling,
Yeah, that's kind of an amazing point, that your children are learning about themselves more because they have that struggle there with the siblings. So awesome. Okay, do either of you want to comment on the structure of the day? Anything that helps with siblings?
So my kids are, the ones that I have now are older. Next year we're going into 7th, 9th and 12th. So honestly, it's very easy at this point because everybody knows what to do. They get up. I just kind of cherry pick who I'm going to work with. I feel like it's very easy. But I'm trying to think back to when they all needed you, and they were younger and there was more needs to be met. And I guess I would say that the thing that you need to be thinking about is, knowing the child's personality. Homeschooling really inspires you to really, really know your children. They're not just leaving all day long, and then when they come home, you're just dealing with a little bit of homework and running to a soccer game and tucking them in. And I don't want to criticize people who do that, and I did that for a time too. But what I'm saying is, when you're home together all day, you have no choice but to really work through any personality issues, any selfishness, any oversensitivities, because if you don't, it's going to be, really rough. So it really inspires you to take a look at these kids and for everybody to want to work together. So I think that's why, by and large, and it's not all the time, but homeschooling children, there's this closeness. And I'm not saying they don't ever argue, but because you're home together all the time and you're really pulling together. So as a mom, I always had a sense of where are my children's strengths and weaknesses? And based on those strengths and weaknesses, like, who did I need to get to first thing? If I don't get her math going, she's the melancholic, she's very organized. If I don't get her going, she's going to be stressed out. Where the sanguine, like me, she's just as happy to flit around and get her dolls set up on the whatever. So I would immediately start this one going and just like teach the math lesson. Well, now she's going to be gone for an hour, or she's going to be doing math for an hour. So then what do I want to do next? I want to make sure that he's working on this. So this is where I say this was good for me, because I had to become a better mom. I had to become a more organized person, so that each day I was constantly, do you guys know, like at the carnival when they had those little things that would pop up and you're trying to hit them with the hammer, and you wanted to see how many you could hit? Yeah, I feel like that's what it was like. Like, this one needs me, now this one, now this one, now this one. And that may sound overwhelming, but it's really so beautiful because it helps you conquer yourself. It helps you become better. And as you become better, they become better. And what you realize is it's not just all about getting the math done. You have to stop yourself. Quit checking boxes. It's not just about getting the math done and getting that worksheet and grammar done or whatever. We're developing people of character and integrity that love each other and work together. So there are some days where you can literally say, all right, put your pencils down. We're changing this up. You two are not getting along. You two, we need to, come over here, and it might be a day where you're going to work on a project, or you're really at liberty to just work on something that's so much more important ultimately than just what they know. And so, that just like how you're going to learn about the curriculums and what works, you're going to learn who needs to be tended to first. What time is a good time to get up? Maybe one that likes to be a little lazier and get up at 10, you get 2 hours done with the early birds who are very disciplined, and this one works better if she gets to sleep in a little bit. So you're going to figure all that out and see what works. So it can be very, very different depending on the family dynamics, the parents, and the children. And you just find what works for you.
I like that, especially because I definitely have a lazy one.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, so I don't have to wake
You mean
her up
the
at 8
10
a.m.?
Right,
Like
right,
the 10
right.
o'clock math one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
get to it before midnight, I promise.
Yeah, before it's the next
Yeah.
day.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. Well, I know Jen has an interesting story about getting one of her children to do her math work. So you can go into whatever else you were going to say too, but I just want that story to come out.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree with everything they said. And when the kids are little, my youngest is 6, my oldest is 12. So, and my 6-year-old is still he's very active. And when they're little, that's a really big juggling act. But I totally agree. What they were saying is that the academic part, that's like, it's almost the secondary part. That's the easy part. The academics will come. There's always a way to figure out how to get them to learn the academics that they need to learn. But you have to, I think, figure out what your motivation is for homeschooling. And I feel like God called me to homeschool. I never thought I would do this, but I feel like God called me to it. And the reason is because I wanted to be the number one influence in my kid's life. And just like what Allison was saying, like you really have that time to then invest in who they are. And yeah, some days you put the books away because it's just not that important.
Sorry, hold on, Jen. I tried to mute
Wrong one.
Amber and I
Okay.
muted you. Okay, sorry. Back up like 10 seconds.
Okay. And there are days where there are other things that are more important and you put the books away. Because like I said, there's always a way to figure out how to get them to learn the things they need to learn. As far as juggling the sibling thing, and this will change. This will change every year as your kids change, as your kids grow. It may change from fall to winter or, or day to day, really. But I have found, and again, like Allison was saying, some kids are okay if there's noise and other kids need quiet. And so you figure out, you really do get to know your kids so much better than you ever thought you could. I mean, really, you really get to know them and you figure out what works for each of them. But when my kids were little, well, and I still do this sometimes actually, like if I'm working with one and they really need my attention, then it's nice to have, if you got toddlers, have like busy bags or, bins or things that they can, touch and do whatever they do. And what I would do is I'd say, okay, I'm going to do, history with Eliana. Nora, you go teach Nathaniel his colors or whatever. And they would get crayons out and she was his teacher and she would, draw, they would draw and she would teach him his colors or his, she would count with him, help him count, his letters, like, or it would be, you go play with, go play. You guys can have 20 minutes. You go play, but you have to be in a different room. So just kind of coming up with things that you have on hand that are, and if it's nice outside, sometimes I send them outside, but things that they can do kind of without you, but they feel like they're being in school or being constructive. And when the other kids feel like they can teach the younger one, they usually really, really like that. And she actually was teaching. I mean, they were teaching him, his colors or whatever. So that was helpful. Andrew is talking about my middle child with the math. This girl, oh my goodness. She's just, any task you give her, it's like, oh, I can't do it. And it takes her forever. And she would take 3 hours to do 2 pages of math. And I'm like, what are you doing? So she asked me if she could listen to music while she did her math. And like, for me, that would be a distraction. That would not help me. But I said, okay, we're going to try it, So she put headphones on and that girl did like 4 pages of math in half an hour. And so that's how she does her math now. And it actually helps because she's not distracting the other ones. She's actually getting stuff done. So yeah, you just learn those things about your kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've even heard that there's, for boys in particular, like they do better comprehending or going through math when they have physical activity either right before or during. So like sitting on a bouncy ball while they're doing their math exercises or worksheets, or just studying something, like just having that action sometimes help them. And I point that out because when my son was young, I was losing my mind a little bit. But then I got him on Matthew C2, which is awesome, by the way. I highly recommend that. But I wanted to talk about socialization, but that could go in a whole nother like half an hour conversation. So I want to talk to you guys and find out what your questions are. If socialization is one of them, feel free to ask it. You know, don't feel like you have to stop or anything. But let us know a little bit about your family situation, who your kids are, how old they are, how many you're homeschooling, or if you are just considering homeschooling, you're not sure yet. And then feel free to pop a question in there. So Leanne, I'll have you start because I know the other moms from Christian Arts Academy, so I know I can get answers to them, but I want to be respectful of your time in case, you know, you have anything else going on. So.
Well, thank you. Well, we are just adventuring into possibly homeschooling both of our kids. I have a son who's going to be starting 6th grade and a daughter who will be starting 4th grade. I'm a little bit more nervous about my son, homeschooling him, going into middle school and the curriculum that comes with that. He's more on the advanced side with math and his science. My daughter's middle, upper level, I would say, in her grade, but 4th grade elementary curriculum, we've already gone through it with my son, so I'm pretty confident with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, gosh, I have like a million questions. I don't even know where to start. It's still so new. I'm trying to research different math curriculums, language art curriculums. It seems like it's endless, the amount of curriculums that are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So one of my questions would be for my son as a 6th grader about how long of a day doing core curriculum should he be working on if we were to do homeschool. I get varying like answers as far as, you know, some do 2 hours a day. Our school is providing a homeschool program, and that's about 5 hours of virtual online with Lincoln Learning, I believe, is their program, which I find that a bit rigorous to sit in front of a computer for 5 hours.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's kind of, you know, for him, you know, what should I expect? What should I be looking for as far as how much schooling for the academics should we be looking at for him?
I have one quick question. So I just realized you might not be in Michigan.
I am in Michigan.
You are in Michigan. Okay.
What city are
that
you in?
could change some answers.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I say that.
We live in St. Clair Shores.
Oh, you're really close then.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So actually, Amber is in St. Clair Shores.
Okay.
Yeah, she's close. I run my program out of Shelby Township.
Get the water. Did you see the water?
Oh, shit, yeah.
Water.
Yeah, she just showed the water.
Yeah.
So yeah, Allison, you probably had.
Yeah, so I had to look at my curriculum. They actually say how long it should take depending on the year. I'm going to venture a guess though and say about 4 hours, but it's going to really depend. What it's going to depend upon is, first of all, math, because sometimes kids take a long time to do math, and it's depending on how rigorous. My kids have rigorous math, and so they're always spending at least an hour on math. You know, it's not quick. And as they got a little bit older, it might even be more like an hour and 15, hour and 20. Are they fast readers? You know, are they children who want to look deeper? Like I had a couple of my boys loved maps and atlases, so when they would do history, and it would say, you know, 25 minutes, but they could easily spend an hour, because when it said go look at the map of, you know, ancient Greece, then they would get out the atlas and they'd be looking. I loved that, you know. So it depends. There's the, you know, how long it takes, and then there's how long the child will take, either because they're interested and curious, or because, you know, math is difficult. I have a son that does very well in math, but he's just very methodical, and he is not fast. Like it just takes him a while. So my kids in general always took longer than what they prescribed them out. But I thought that was great, actually. And like one of the things that we do in classical education a lot of times is poetry. Poetry is important for a lot of reasons. I used to poo-poo that when I first started. I thought, oh, poetry, that's one thing we can lop right off. And our busy day, who cares about poetry? I'm totally different now. But it would say, like 7 minutes. And I'd be like, who could ever read, these great poems? But the idea is you're just trying to do some memorization because that's, for a variety of reasons, it's very good for the mind. But I would just say, no way. You can't pick up these amazing poems and say 10 minutes. It's going to be like 17 or 18 or 20. And they memorize these long poems. So sometimes you have to help your child and say you need to go a little faster or you're kind of rushing through. So those are just guidelines. When the curriculum says 20 minutes for this and a half an hour for that and 45 for that, understand if they're having troubles or if they're very curious, that's going to change. At least it's a guideline. So 6th grade, I'm going to say maybe 4 hours. Max. But there's also, is that max for you? We do a lot of reading though. And, history, our history, reading novels, short novels, is a big part of it. And that's not rushed. That's, so you can certainly hone it down. And that's the beauty of homeschooling, because if you look at the curriculum and say, I don't agree with that, or that sounds really great, but not this year, not this child. You can even cut whole things out of curriculums. We study Latin. Again, I didn't think that was important early on. Now I do. But for certain child in certain years, I say, I'm not even going there, So, but anyway, I would say.
Well, and can I ask, have you seen in the curriculums that it has like a placement test for like math? Have you gotten that far in any of the math?
I have not gotten that far. I've seen where I should be looking into like placement, but I haven't gotten that far too.
Like Math UC and teaching textbooks and all these different ones have placement tests. And that's a great start. And sometimes, like, I wanted, if she were to take it, like, we've been doing it a while, so she doesn't need to. I know that she went to her brother to that. Another child, she's doing the work, but honestly, she took the placement test, she wouldn't place there. So we kind of have to look at it and see, like, I have her in a math that's higher than I think she would place, but she's doing excellently. So you have to kind of, like you said, math and science are his things. So you probably, want to go with the placement test or higher. It's a thing that you have to, your kid, with that,
yeah.
you know what they're capable of.
I will touch base on the virtual thing. So my daughter was in 6th last year and going into 7th this year. And we did, because we were in public school, we ended up having, that March 13th. I memorized the day because it's my husband's birthday that everything was sent, out of the school. So I was like, oh, that's mark the day for me. So I remember that forever. But anyway, I found that she did amazing with the majority of the work because she said for a child that will take every self-learner, self-starter. There are virtual programs that I would like to issue for her that aren't public school programs. There are some things out there that, once again, when we talk about curriculum, you just want to like research a little bit. But like, what's the one I think off the top of my head? I think it's all about Omega, and there's Monarch, which have curriculum that computer programs. They're coming online now. When I was doing that with my son, they were SQL servers. So what it was you put the computer program into your computer, you download the software or whatever it is now, and it would go along with your child. So as they progress, they learn something, it was all kind of taking score each time, and then it would go to the next phase. And so that was kind of a nice way when he's doing that in years to keep a guide of what's going on. And I'm looking into stuff for her because I can just say, here you go, and then I don't have to go back and grade anything. Because in my land, I'm like, I need my hands off a little bit. I will not be able to run a business and do every detail that needs to take place. So that's just from my perspective on some of the virtual stuff. I did not like for my younger kids when they were doing the public school virtually. It was a huge struggle. It was not joyous for those younger kids. And I felt like I didn't really know what the teacher was talking about, so I couldn't really explain it better. And I was very thankful that it was just a credit or no credit. Yeah, pass or fail. Because I was like, I just want to get through this. Like I was done. I had no joy in any of that. So the self-learner, like you can probably find something for them that they can, and maybe you can research the curriculum with them. Does this sound interesting to you? Ultimately, you have to make a decision. But if you're finding something that has some interest in them, like they'll be a little more apt at least to try it. But their personality, so that's just something on that virtual front to think about. So
Thank you.
yeah.
The encouragement there too is like a lot more than you think you do. Like
Yes.
we're built with skills for our kids to make it a great experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in Michigan we're very blessed because we do not have all those restrictions that a lot of states do. So we're very open forum to homeschool as we wish in states, as long as that continues. Let's hope it doesn't take a funny turn, with everything that's going on. So yes. Did you want to ask anything else?
That's what, not really. I mean, I do, but it's still so new for me that I think I need to educate myself a little bit more to be able to narrow down some of my questions. Like I said, I have a million questions, but I think a lot of it I can answer with a little bit more research and education on my behalf. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I am still researching.
yeah, if that makes sense or anything, yeah.
Well, even another mom was going to come on tonight who I was going to have talk, but she's like, I actually just wanted to go on to like learn some more. And I'm like, that's fine too. So did you end up connecting through Christian Arts Academy? Did you go to the events tab or did you just click on a post?
I clicked on a post.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you look up on Facebook, Christian Arts Academy, I will probably, if I have another event like this, you can go in and you'll be notified. And then, if there's more information that's coming out, then you can, just hop in there or there's Zoom. Okay. So I want to just make that absolutely. So Megan, well, actually, I should probably have Amber go since she's walking around, and I'm afraid that she might end up unplugging again. So Amber, do you have any questions? And tell us about your family.
Actually, I just got back to the car and I'm charging my phone because I'm on my cousin's phone. So if you want to go to somebody else and then I'll go next. So then I should be on my phone again. So
okay. All right.
Just be aware I'm going to dial back in a few minutes.
Okay, no problem. All right, Megan, you are up.
Hey everybody, thanks for inviting me. Hi, I have a kindergartner coming up for the fall. She's 5. I have a 2.5-year-old and a newborn. So my initial kind of program, I was struggling this for even before the pandemic hit, where to put Ariana, homeschool, public, or private. And then anyway, I made peace with public, and then the pandemic hit, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I'm still kind of keeping all options open. I'm kind of leaning towards the public and just trusting God in it. And I kind of want to do in person, just because, like how you said, the socialization I think is so key. And she's a really big people person. She loves her friends. She did great in preschool. We had her at Rock Point there at Handprints. She did great. However, I kind of am also like exploring all the options. The only thing that's tough with like homeschool for me is because the ages of the kids, and the only time I can seem to have like Ariana like pay attention is like at 9 or 10 when everyone else is sleeping. So I don't know if that's attainable, and an hour is probably the max I can have her like learn. And we tried like the workbooks. So that's kind of what's going on.
Were you saying that the only time you have free time, did you say was like 9 or 10? Is that what you're saying?
Not really like free time, but the only time like I can have her sit down, because the only thing I could figure out is have like the littler one do like TV or something. Because I tried like doing like have the 2.5-year-old do like Play-Doh, And that just was a disaster because she just wanted to get into like her homework and like rip it up or, you know, like color. And it's just like, eh. So I don't know if I'm up to the task. I mean, I'm sure I could, but that just seems like a really tough thing to even do like an hour a day. And maybe an hour is all she needs. My cousin, she's a teacher in a public, and she said at this age, all they need is an hour, like one-on-one. I don't know if.
Yeah.
And that's broken up too, you know, an hour throughout the whole day. You have however long they're up to get that hour in too, you know.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a sit down for a long time.
Right. I mean, and like once I get her going, I say, okay, I call it special time.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I'm not an expert, but I say like, hey, ready for special time? Let's get out your little. It's a scholastic one, and that's what we do. Because I want her to be good by the time she gets into kindergarten to kind of know. But I don't know much about programs. I've heard of My Father's House or World, and then I've heard of Classical. My friend Amy McCormick from the church we go to, she does that one, Classical Conversation. It just sounded tough though with going. She said Friday or something. I don't know. That just sounded too hard for me. Then I have to bring the two. I'd rather just do something like all in if I'm gonna do something.
Yeah, Megan, I would say, I mean, for kindergarten, it may not even be an hour. And it, like Hillary said, it doesn't have to be an hour start to finish. I mean, you can do kindergarten science in like 7 minutes. I mean, and then, okay, we're going to take a break and now we're going to do, you know, whatever. Yeah. So, and all of, if anyone is, you know, doubting, oh, can I do this or do I want to do this? You know, a long time ago, a veteran homeschooler told me, you are your child's first teacher. You teach them to walk and talk and all of those other things, how to say please and thank you and, you know, feed themselves and potty train. And, you know, so God has given your children to you for a reason. And you know, you definitely can do it. So just as a word of encouragement, you definitely can do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
I am more concerned too, like about the whole, because I'm a Christian. I want her raised as one, definitely. I know I would have more control, but then I guess on the opposite side of things, I think, well, if I get her in the public, I can, you know, join the PTO. I can do whatever, you know, like be involved and like pray like for her, and that she is like a light. So I guess it's like my internal struggle is like, you know, do I kind of want to put her out there and then be involved? Like I met the teachers. I don't know. I'm like all over the. I really can't like nail it down, to be honest.
You know, one thing that I wanted to just say is the school, you're fairly young. I have wonderful memories of being in school. I love being in school. I love mostly the social aspect, but I was very involved. And even when I first started homeschooling, and then I would drive by a school and I would see the kids playing and I'd be like, oh, I remember how neat that was. Things are changing. It's not like that anymore. It's a different atmosphere. So you have to understand, and I've heard so many young Christian families, or not even young, say, well, my child's going to be the light. My child's going to bring Christ to those kids. You need to protect your children at this age. Your children are not equipped to deal with all of the things that are going to be coming at them. And a lot of the things that come at them are not overt. They're very subtle.
Yes.
They're very subtle. And so they change. They can be changed by the conversation. And even the teachers, you know, being with them all day long, they have a tremendous impact. How do they see the world? Do they see the world? Do they have the same view of you? Do that God is a creator and he is, you know, our father? Or is it a different spin? And how is their discipline? What kind of words do they use? So you have to be realistic that it sounds fun to put them in school and join the PTA and all of that, but it's a very difficult environment for a child to grow up in these days. It's just not like you're maybe remembering it. It's getting very difficult.
right, and specifically this year too, even if in person is possible with most districts, That's not sports. That's not having a PTO. No visitors in the
That's
school.
true.
You're not allowed to go in and
Yeah.
see them
Yeah,
during the day.
they
And
weren't
that
even
scared
at
me.
recess.
That
like-
totally scared me when I said I can't come and check on my kid because I have quite a few special needs kids and I can't go check on them. And I'm like, that not, you know, for me, like it totally petrifies me to think about that.
Public school's gonna be way different than
Mhm.
you've ever remembered it.
Right. It's
I
not
mean-
the way we had an experience.
Yeah, it's not gonna be the same as it was in February. Like,
Right,
it's gonna be
right.
totally different now than it was. So Megan, just real quick, I just want to ask you said something about masks. I didn't hear it. Sorry, my husband was like, I need to take a shower and need some clothes. So I kind of missed a little bit of what you said. Did you say you were worried about the masks or you weren't worried about the masks?
No, I mean, I asked Ariana, I was like, okay, like I was trying to like feel her out. Like you'd have to wear a mask on the bus, and then you know, kind of here and there, because I guess under 6 to kindergarten, it's not required as long as they're not in the hallways and such.
Right.
Being in the classroom, and she said her response was she'd be okay if she practices now and gets a feel for it, because we haven't went anywhere since this dropped because I was pregnant and a newborn, so
Yeah.
we've kind of been real like sheltered.
Yeah.
But I guess like, you know, how you're saying, I loved school. I loved everything about it. I mean, yeah, there's their downsides, but I guess to me too, like I want to see her riding the bus. I want to like have her all these experiences, but like you said, I'm not naive to like the agendas. I guess maybe I'm a little naive. I don't know when they kind of, are they real hardcore starting in kindergarten? I don't know. And
So-
that's the thing, like I'm not going to be there, so I guess I wouldn't know. Like I can't be watching in the class like, what are they saying? Like, are they saying like a girl's a boy, or you know, like
Yeah. Okay. I'll say this on this real quick because I have seen this having my kids in the public school. When my daughter was in kindergarten, there was this book, and I bought it because it was super cheap on like Scholastic or something. It was like Bad Kitty something, and I read it to my daughter after we got it, and I had to put the book down, and I was like, I have to burn this. And she
Well,
said, we read this in school. Well, she said, we read this in school. And I was like, you did? So I called the teacher because what it was there was a part about two women who were married, and I think they had a child together, and it was real undercurrent. It was just like Aunt so-and-so with Aunt so-and-so, and it was just a quick phrase that was popped in. So the teacher actually didn't know about it because she never got that far in the book, but she was reading it to the class like as a free time. So it's actually like getting fed in all different ways that we never see or realize, and it's kind of constant. But because I was home reading that particular book with her, I was able to catch it. Would the teacher have? I don't know. And I don't know that the teacher would have paused or skipped because it was actually in alphabetical order the way this particular book was going through. So I just kind of put that out there so that you know it's being fed to all of us. But if you are homeschooling, you can catch it and you can, you know, pitch it and go like, this is what we're going to learn about this. Now, I also am not a person who thinks you should shelter your children 100% from everything. I think that you need to identify and teach. Okay, so that's where I come from that perspective. I did want to touch on socialization, which actually kind of keys in, but I know Jennifer, Jennifer, you wanted to say something. So go ahead, Jen.
Well, I was going to kind of lead into that as well. And, you know, and I've seen curriculums where even like their math curriculum, you know, in the schools, you know, they'll have a word problem, and it's going to be, you know, it would be against your beliefs, but it's like, oh, it's their math homework. But you know, even just the word problem is completely inappropriate. You know, I think it was a 4th grade math problem, and it was something about, you know, this man having an affair on his wife, and it was like this really weird math problem. But the socialization thing and this kind of goes with what we've been talking about, is your school is not the only place that kids are going to be socialized. People are socialized everywhere they go, and unless you literally keep your kid, you know, locked in a cage, they're going to be socialized. So it really, you have to determine what kind of socialization do you want them to have. have. And if you look at the history of mankind, the school model that we have right now is very new, and it's not really normal human socialization to be with the majority of just your peers. You know, and what I love about the homeschool communities is when you see, you know, these kids that are with multiple ages, and they can speak to adults, and they can take care of little ones, and you know, they're not just with their peers. And I have found that to be one of the biggest benefits for us being in the homeschool community. And if they're home with you, you have control over how they're being socialized. That's just my 2 cents. The socialization argument as a whole is really nonsense to say that, you know, homeschool kids are not socialized. It's absolutely ludicrous. And I after you're done being offended by it, you just have to laugh it off, because it's like, it's the number one argument you hear, and it's just, there's nothing to it.
So if I could add something to that, do you want your children to act like other kids their age at school? Is that what you want them to be socialized to look like? And I mean, I read that one time and I thought, oh my gosh, that is perfect. This is not what I want my child to be, is what they're talking about in their 6th grade class at school. You know, they're going to see everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when you're homeschooling them, you can pick and choose who are the social, what children, what
Right.
groups. And when you have different children in the same home, here's something really neat too. When kids come home from school and they're tired and they've been with their 10-year-old friends all day long, they don't oftentimes have a lot of patience or wherewithal to deal with their 5-year-old sister. You know what I mean? They're in this group think of everybody thinking the same thing and acting the same way. And I think it's harder for siblings to get along when they come home. When they're together all day long, the 18-year-old, I mean, my 18-year-old is playing with my 12-year-old. I have grandchildren too. I have 9 grandchildren. So we have them from 9 on down to 1. So we have toddlers in middle school and high school interacting and constantly. And exactly like Jennifer said, the young ones can speak to the older ones can take care of the younger ones. There is zero advantage to being with 30 other same-aged kids. That is not the way that socialization has ever taken place historically, and it's certainly not, in my view, an ideal way at all.
Well, and once they graduate, like if you think about school's 13 years, we go kindergarten to graduation, you are never socialized like that again. You are never with 30 of the same age people.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, here I am, right? I don't even know how old you guys are. I won't ask.
50s, 40s, and 30s. You're not even 40 yet, are you?
No, but I'm close. I'm getting there. But yeah, so that's real. You know what I mean? That's a real life situation. When you go off to have a job, you know, you're going to have 20, 30, 40-year gaps. And you have to know how to relate to those people. Now, yeah, there's a difference in your brain development. You know, you can understand things cognitively and that kind of thing. But you're teaching a child how to talk to a 13-year-old or how to talk to an adult. Like, what an amazing skill to have a child begin to communicate, like have a real live conversation that then doesn't become awkward, even if it is for a moment or whatever, because they've developed some of those skills along the path. So I'll come from the public school perspective on the socialization. So my one daughter, who is a kind of born leader, I have still seen, even though I've seen her be a great influence to her peers, I have still seen them influence her. As much as she's probably the forerunner in the group, she is still definitely influenced, not just by the kids from the school that she's friends with, but also their siblings. Okay, so when she goes to their house, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I really want you hanging out, but you've been hanging out for like 2 years really close at this point. And I'm kind of going, maybe this homeschool thing will help a little bit with the separation that I think needs to take place. So there's some kids. There's a lot of kids here hanging out and playing out there. But I don't know where I was going. I lost my train. My train ran away. Yeah, it'll come back.
Going to the friend's house.
So
So there's more than just those influences that are coming in. And I feel like I have a better opportunity here with homeschooling this next year to have them be around like-minded people that I actually even look up to. You know, Ariana's come to dance class. That's a great place to socialize. It's the same thing. It's a structure. You're with children that are, you know, her same age group, not necessarily exactly her same age, but the same age group, having fun. They get to talk before, they get to talk after, and you can create play dates. And guess what? You can actually go on those play dates right after class if you want to. And that's around your schedule now. You know what I mean? So there's so much flexibility, I feel like, that's also why I'm homeschooling and not doing the virtual program, because I want the flexibility that if I put my kids in the public school virtual program, I know I can't do that at 8 o'clock at night. You know, I teach until 3 p.m. doing my dance classes. Well, then I have to do homeschooling after that. And the virtual program won't give me that option. So that's another one of the reasons. And masks, that's my number one.
I have just a quick example. My now 10-year-old, she was 7 when she really wanted to try school. And I was like, sure, let's give you a try. So halfway through the year, she's like, can I homeschool again so I can actually be with my friends and talk? Because all day long, this is not the time to socialize. You're here for school. So that was like a huge, like it kind of, for me, confirmed things that I already felt. I just needed that confirmation. And then since then, she's been happy to be back at socializing in a natural way.
We didn't get to Amber, who is now in a car.
But I'm parked in my at my house now.
Oh, okay. So this is good time.
Yes, this is the perfect time.
Okay.
But I can't get out of my car because then I'll lose my
Okay.
I'm in St. Clair Shores too. I know someone said they said they were, so we could connect through Andrea, but so I work a full-time job from home. I do have the most amazing boss. Andrea knows this because he's amazing with, like, I take Annabelle to next week. We're doing mermaid camp, which is from 10:30 to 12:30. I just take my iPad or my laptop and I work while she's in class. In June, I sat under the tree and did it. So I have a great flexibility, but and I've already talked to my my boss about if I end up homeschooling, and he's like, "Don't worry, we'll work with it." Annabelle's 5. She's going into kindergarten. She has been going to St. Germain, which is literally across the street from me, and it is for preschool. And we have paid our first enrollment fees and tuition because that was the plan originally, was for her to go to kindergarten there. But I'm nervous about sending her because I can't do the go to school for 6 weeks or 2 weeks, and then I have to pull her out, and then I have to follow their curriculum. I need it to be able to be on my schedule because I run our business unit, so I can't really shift things. There's sometimes I have to just be doing what I need to do. And but I'm nervous because I actually bought a program that I wish I would have done more research before I spent the money, but it's an Abeka, the virtual academy. The problem is for kindergarten, for K-5, it's like 4 hours of videos.
Wow, video.
A day.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my daughter is like, now I'm not gonna lie, we did do some of them like last year because my Andrea knows this. Annabelle is super bright, and but I think it turned her off because we were planning on learning to read this summer, and she refuses. She keeps telling me she's not ready, and she tells me things like, well, I just don't know if I can do it. And before quarantine and before I tried these videos, she was all for it. But in the same aspect, their Bible portion is amazing because my daughter has verses already memorized. And so I'm like, well, what if I just don't do that and just follow the parent-led portion, even, and just don't do the videos? And but then she hates the phonics class. And so I'm like, well, then we need to find a different reading. But she loves the numbers class for K-5. She loves it. She thinks it's the best thing. And so it's, I'm struggling with that. And I don't know, I'm probably a little bit all over the mat because my husband isn't on board with me homeschooling. So he has the traditional mindset that homeschooling isn't, a good idea. I would have to be up against his family kind of thinking down on homeschool. But I have more friends who homeschool their children than I do who don't, and that's part of it's through Christian Arts Academy. And then part of it's through my friends at church, and just randomly, I just seem to have more homeschooling. So I have much more open, but I still working, and I do work completely from home. I don't, I was traveling, but I actually take my daughter with me when I travel. So, like our other office is in Florida, so she just goes with me, and she runs around with the dogs because my boss brings his dogs in, so I have like the best job as far as flexibility and stuff. But even I'm just nervous about how do I do the structure? How do I pick and say, okay, from 8 to 9, this is homeschooling, and like 1 to 2, do I build a structure in? Do I try to be flexible? But she doesn't always respond to non-structure, but then sometimes she suddenly, my kid who loves to learn is telling me she's not ready. And I don't know if it's because I keep going back and forth between saying, let's homeschool, let's send her to private school. So even though it is a private Catholic school, I am not always super on board with some of the agendas that are coming in. And like you're saying, you'd be surprised what is also coming through, and it's supposed to be a private school. So I don't know. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but
Okay.
We all feel that way.
Yeah, okay. That's totally normal.
okay.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick what put the icing on the cake for me and why I'm homeschooling this year, because I vacillated. Jennifer knows. I was definitely with the mask thing. My middle schooler, I was like, nope, you're not wearing one of those all day long. I don't like you breathing your own carbon dioxide for hours on end. And if you've looked at any of the studies, it's ridiculous. The air quality is, it's pollution level. So anyway, but my younger two who didn't have to wear the mask, I was like, well, I'll have 2 of you in school and I'll just homeschool one. And I thought that was a great idea. But then I thought, well, what happens if I put you guys in school and they close the schools again? Now I have an opportunity to put them in a co-op where they can be socialized with other homeschoolers and being that or what sign you up for, because now we're in the middle of their semester. So we lost Amber. You still hear over there.
Okay.
So when I realized that they can still shut the schools down and then they have to flip over to the virtual thing and I'm kind of stuck. Or someone in the school gets COVID and then that person was in your class, so now you and your family has to be quarantined. That affects my business. That makes not really, but it doesn't just affect me in my business. It affects all of the people who are involved in my business, all of your kids, and then I have to go back to virtual classes, which are a lot less personal, of course, but then it's tougher to do too. So that was kind of my reasoning for saying, nope, we are going to have to homeschool all 3 of you. And I like the idea of me being able to do 3 o'clock afternoon classes if I needed to. So that's me and my take on it. But there were some other things that popped up in there. She was talking, I don't know if any of you had wanted to
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to kindergarten should not be a big deal.
No,
Kindergarten,
fun.
The
Yeah.
word fun, I'm like, if I could go back, I have all these like high school, middle schoolers. I have 5 kids over 10. And I'm like, kindergarten. Oh, bring me back to kindergarten, because you read and you color and you talk and it's beautiful. It is such a lovely year. It's so seriously the precious time that I miss.
Yeah. Kindergarten isn't actually required by the state of Michigan either.
We think
So,
we think
it is.
Our
It's
brains
in our
are very, very wired to believe that education starts at 5 formally.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm so grateful that after years and years of beating it out of myself, it's like kindergarten, first, those are really sweet years. That it doesn't like what you do naturally during the day is educating them.
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, and I
Yeah,
just
I guess
go ahead.
what I worry about is like this summer. So she goes one day to my sister-in-law's, and my niece comes over 2 days, and then I have her 2 days. And today and Monday, because we're rolling out a new phone system and it's really crazy busy for me, she watched way too much TV because I had so many meetings. And like I took almost all of yesterday off to do a play date with her and do stuff. Like I said, I have a great boss. So she did tons of stuff yesterday, but then she watched TV almost all day today. And so it's like, and I know that's how it would be for homeschooling, is there are going to be some days where my attention is just, I'm not able to do as much as I wish because I still work a full-time job. And I guess that's what has me on the fence the most, is would she do better off? But to be honest, if they close the school, I'm just going to pull her out completely. So
Can I share something with you? You know, when we grew up,
Sure.
I grew up watching a lot of TV. It was the 70s. Everybody watched TV. I come home from school. I couldn't wait to get my snack and watch TV. You know, when I read the Laura Ingalls Wilder books to my children, I was really struck by the idea that they would just go outside and run after butterflies and play with sticks. And so we have to be very cognizant of how we are raising our children. And so if our children always have to be entertained, if they're in school all day and then they go to sports and then they come home and do this and then they go to bed, we're never giving them an opportunity to be creative and to find passions and to entertain themselves or to entertain each other. So the fact that they're busy all the time, means she has to watch TV. And we just working with our children, this idea that I'm bored. You know, kids who go to school all day, then they go to summer and then they're bored. So parents are putting them in camps and getting them, and I've seen this, and I did some of this too with my older two now are 35 and 36. We need to develop in our children an ability to have interests and passions and hobbies, and beyond that, there's service. What are they doing around the house? Dad, do they, work with you on the car at all? Mom, can they help you do meal planning? Can they help you do grocery shopping? Teach them about budgeting. We have to get out of this mindset that we've been in probably for 40 years in America, where our kids have to be entertained and busy all the time. So one of the things too that homeschooling did, because I had my two oldest children went to school, all that they graduated from private school, so I never homeschooled them. So I had to struggle with that too. Like, what do you do in the summer? And all of a sudden I'm like, why am I trying to entertain them? So I actually made a list. And I said, what do I want them to do? I want them to learn how to work. I want them to do service. Who can they be helping in the community or in our family? I want them to develop their passions and their hobbies. So when you have your kids at home, you really need to take a look at them and say, who do I want this little one to become? And it's not just about getting the schoolwork done or acquiring knowledge. It's developing as a person. So honestly, it's a paradigm shift. When you start homeschooling, your mind, it's mind-blowing how all of a sudden you're like at a blank slate and you're saying, what do I want to do with this day? What do I want to do with my child? How generous are they becoming? How hardworking? How self-disciplined? How, you know what I mean? And then you can even make a list like, what do I want my child to learn? I want them to know history. I want them to be a good writer and a good speaker. And so then I would start researching, like, are there speech clubs or are there debate? It doesn't happen overnight. So those of you who are organized right from the get-go and want it like done and sewn up by September, it's not going to happen. It's going to be a process. But get excited about, just sit down and make a list of what do I want my child to be, what virtues, do I want to create in my child, and then what I do to accomplish that. It's really, it's so exciting. It's mind-boggling. It sounds really make you feel wrong. But you do, it's the biggest and best and most important job you'll ever be as a parent. And then you put a homeschool parent on top of it, it's even bigger and better and more exciting and more responsibility. But it's exciting, it's amazing.
And there's a freedom in all that. That actually comes with freedom. Even though it sounds overwhelming, there's a freedom in it. But I had a question too. For the kindergartners, like do you feel that 5 days a week is what you want to do with them? Like you want 5 days, like, because you're saying that some days like you're more involved with work, and at that level, like you don't have to have a 5-day schedule. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, I was actually, yeah, that was the thing, is I was thinking more like having like 3 days be school days, and then use Saturday or Sunday when my husband's home. He wants her to learn cursive, so I told him he would have to teach her. So
yes.
Daddy involved. Yeah, so I was like, well then, and then we can do Sundays, we can do Bible, and we can do it as a family, and that was kind of, I've spent the past like 6 months probably thinking about it, and stuff. So I was thinking more like she would have structured 3 days, and we're actually currently redoing our basement because we flooded, but like she loves to play restaurant. So we're building her a small little restaurant, and she has a wall of all her games. And actually the way was teaching her math is I have 2 games that she loves to play, it's number bingo, and she doesn't even know she's learning. Yeah. And this counting ants game. And so, we just do those, and I found she was doing better than me. I was trying to make her do what I thought this curriculum should be, or like making sure I do worksheets and stuff like that. So I think I was overwhelming her and me. And she, as long as I'm doing something with numbers, my husband's an engineer, so this is where she gets it. She is all about learning. The moment I bring the letters out, she's like, yeah, no. So it's like, I think I need to find some other other curriculum or something to do the phonics and the learning and the reading. But we've mostly we read to her every day and every night. And last night she did finally say, yeah, maybe it would be fun to know how to read the words myself. So I'm hoping, like I said, I'm trying to teach her games because the worksheets seem to stress her out a lot.
Yeah,
it's kindergarten.
At that age, I think it would be. I went into something real quick. Because I know you said you were worried about having Annabelle with a couple people like answering me who let her watch a lot of TV, and it's kind of out of your control, right? Because she's not.
Once school starts, it'll just be her with me every day, and that's what I'm worried about. Now,
think about that, Amber, like a mother's helper, somebody who come right into your home, like a somebody to. You could even have a homeschool in our community. We like homeschool daughters.
Yeah, I have 5 girls, and that's what they do. Is they
really
hang out with kids
for a couple hours, even, and
they
do cool things.
They have to pay them.
That would be.
It's really low. Okay. Yeah, it's like $10 like for the whole day. Quite low. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow! I'm paying like $10 an hour now to my niece because she's in college, and she didn't get. Yeah, it's expensive. I can only afford her 2 days a week. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would definitely be open to that because I definitely think she loves being with other kids. But that influence you were talking about, there's one little girl that I don't let her go over there anymore. They have to play at my house because like she wanted to play witch's brew, and they're not Christians, and it's just like she like will just say Jesus and just, but not in a good way in my house. And I'm like, well, we don't actually say it like that. So I'm like trying to like limit their friendship. But she lives behind us, so that's kind of a trickier one. But yeah, I'm just trying to, I don't know. And of course I need to help my husband understand, and I'm so glad you're recording this, Andrea, because I'm going to make him watch it. But I want my husband to understand and be on board, because if he's not on board and my daughter's not on board, I can't be the only one who thinks homeschooling is the right option. It'll just, I can't fight them. So everyone. So.
Just to let you know, like, it's very common for people to oppose you when you decide to homeschool. My mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, they both opposed me. The funny thing is, just like 2019, my mother-in-law came to me and said, I think you should start homeschooling. I'm like, 10 years ago when I was homeschooling, you tell me, she's like, I changed my mind.
Yeah, my mother-in-law's a
Yeah.
teacher, and so I got, and my oldest is extremely like academically very intelligent, and so she's just thought for sure I'd screw it all up. And now in the last couple of years, she sends me like constant like emails of like homeschooling things. And did you know this? And I'm like, yeah, I've learned that. So it's a process. Like if you feel called to it and you feel that in this current climate that your kid is going to be the most self-protected during this time, or the most successful, not even just academically, you know, but with who they are. And I mean, you have to, you can count on yourself for that. You can believe in yourself.
I wanted to say something again, because she has so intense, and I started to look at everything was just run up high school. High school is where things really matter, because if you want to go to college, you need to have a good transcript. They need to be prepared. So everything that I did leading up to it was the idea that, you know, I didn't need to really start keeping that transcript and being hardcore transcript until 9th grade. And so for things like science, you know, the schools put such a stress on doing all of this stuff, but when you can cultivate a love of learning, and if you love science, and you go to science museums, you can sign them up for science clubs. There's also like Lego buildings and robotics, things to just whet his appetite for science and learning. And as long as he's sort of maintaining, I had an expert one time I listened to said, anything up to about 8th grade or so is really just vocabulary. You want them to be, you know, comfortable with the vocabulary of science and the scientific method, kind of have a general idea. But this idea that, you know, you need to have everything so perfect, other than math and reading, because math and reading progress very specifically every year. But things like science, you could do the most incredible, interesting, fun things. You know what I mean? And it allows you the time to go search out clubs and activities and or reading science books that he loves just for the love of knowledge. So it's just so important to just foster that love of learning. And what they've seen with the modern way that we're educating our children. When my children, who are 35 or so, started in kindergarten, I remember they learned a letter a week, and they had a letter hanging from the ceiling, and it was all about Miss A, and all we learned about A, and then week 2 to B. That wasn't that long ago. My girls were in kindergarten. And now we're expecting kids practically to read before they get there.
Absolutely.
And they're having classes and summer schools to prep you for kindergarten. I want to just say, this is not the way the little brain was meant to work. And one of my best and brightest of my own children refused to read in kindergarten. He was high activity, high energy. And when I would sit down one day, and he said to me, I already know this. And I'm thinking, how can you know this? I haven't taught you anything. And I actually like put my stuff down and said, see you next year, Sean. I was so frustrated with him. I didn't just give up on him that year, but mostly he was a physical kid. But man, he came back in first grade, a year older, a year more matured, and he was ready. He did not learn to read. I'm not kidding you. Until maybe halfway through first grade, because he finally now that I have 1 year younger, 2 years after that, he was right a year later, and he is a scholar reading. And I use this example so many times because I've had the ones that learn easily and the ones that struggle more. But reading, and he didn't read until he was like 7 years old, you know. So much of what the schools are forcing is not proper. It's not what early childhood development people would say. It's not what educators would say. It's a bureaucracy. It's government. What do they know about how a child learns, you know? So it really opens you up to say, you know, start reading some books on learning, you know. You can ask for references probably from some of us in the group. Start deciding for yourself, what philosophy do I adhere to? What speaks to my heart? You know, find a good math curriculum to be sure, because he's a math guy. You want to keep him going on the math. But science, you can be very creative. And as long as he's prepped in a way that he's got self-discipline, so this is a big deal. Self-discipline, help him if he's not a self-motivated, help him with self-motivation, with responsibility, with integrity, with patience and generosity. And then you put a good curriculum in his hands when he gets a little older, and he'll do great. So you've got some time now to figure this out, you know. Keep him reading great novels that the classics that speak to the heart and the soul. You know, it'll build his brain, you know. It's so much simpler than you think it is. I just have to tell you, it's so much simpler. And you're just driving to be where high school is important, because they're going to go to college, you know, that's where the transcript is really important. But up to that, you've got a few years here to get things figured out.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say too, for the science, I remember I was thinking about the hands-on once they get older, and I can't believe how many like kits you can buy in the mail. That we did something called Mel Chemistry this summer, and I mean, from my 4-year-old to my 16-year-old, they were in the backyard and they were talking about it. And it's funny because it's a little bit high, like the vocabulary was a little higher. My kids who've only been in public school their whole life had absolutely no clue. And my one kid who I've never done a formal science, but that's her bend, so she goes into it herself, absolutely was explaining the vocabulary to them, and she's younger than them. Yeah. So I was just like watching it all unfold, and I said, wow, like that self-motivated, going deep type of learning really caused her to like shine in this moment. I was really surprised and excited about it. So
I would say I've seen that as homeschoolers tend to absorb the material better. Like they have more of an instinct to find the curiosity in learning these things.
They have the time.
And they hold on to it a little more. I know Sean Bowles made a comment about how the human brain develops like astronomically more between 0 and 4 than ever again in your life. So something happens at the age of 5, which is kind of interesting. And I really like he was pointing out he thinks it's something wrong with our structure in our school systems because of the way it's become such a systemized learning event. Because think about it, before that age, they're grabbing something, they're maybe licking it, but they're learning so much more about the world around them just by experiencing it than being told this is what it is, this is what it is. Okay, memorize that because then we're going to test you on it. How much do we remember? Like, I don't remember a whole lot from my public school education. Some of my college stuff that I was interested in, because I was interested in it, I remember that. I absorb it. And some of the stuff that was actually more, it was, how do you say, like, it pulled it out of me. So it was like an English class that someone said, I think you're gifted in this area. And the next thing I know, someone pointed it out to me. That's why I was like, oh, maybe I'm good at this. And what are you going to do as a parent? You're going to be the encourager.
Yeah.
Now you'll notice there's things that they actually, are going to struggle in as well. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to put that out there. I don't know if you guys are like, I'm just doing this for a year or not. You might be doing it feeling you want to do longer or less. But I want to open it up for questions again. So we kind of touched on socialization there. Amber, it looked like you had a hand up.
Yeah, so for kindergarten, if I just focused on basically just letters, phonics, and numbers, I mean, like the Abeka stuff has social studies, it has a ton of stuff, but I really felt it was overloading.
It is.
Yeah, you can take Gloria.
Abeka it's very thorough.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I would pick and choose from it instead of thinking you have to do the whole thing, especially for kindergarten. So, and maybe that's a conversation we could have at some point, like actually saying what curriculums you've had, like this does this and this does this.
Because I'm sure a lot of us have a lot of curriculum experience.
Yeah. And I have some Abeka, and I'm going to use, like, I bought an entire curriculum that I got at like a homeschool book fair because I got the entire curriculum for $25 and I wasn't going to pass that up.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, if I use one subject, I'm making it worth my while. So that's what I did. And I'm like, I'm probably going to use just this and maybe this. But then I'm going to go, I don't like the way they do science. I'm going to go over here and do this for science. So that's how I'm going through this next year, at least, because I have a lot of brains to pick. And I'm happy to, help anyone. Leanne, if you have questions, along the way, you can feel free to message me and I will get them. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to get you to somebody who does. So
if I just focused on like those plus doing things like she does math in her head through word problems. Like I can tell her a story and she'll actually tell me how many people should be there or how many oranges. It's like she's super bright. But if I just focus on that kind of stuff, is that enough? I felt it was very overwhelming. I mean, I want to do the Bible studies and Bible stories, but I also have a lot of crafts and stuff.
I have a Bible it's a short Bible what's it called? Devotional. and we use it for actually our 4 to 16-year-old. We actually do it together. And there's a couple questions at the end, but it's actually enjoyable and it's pretty in-depth. It's like I would think back to my childhood, like in the church, and it's like I remember just learning about Noah and all this, but this goes even deeper. Like they learn about the tabernacle, and it's super cool, but it's really doable, very manageable.
And Amber, you're going to want to read to her a lot. This is one of the best things you can do for their imagination, for their vocabulary, your voice inflection. A lot of parents make the mistake once their children start to learn, like, oh, good, now I don't need to read to you anymore. But what we found, like Andrew Pudua, who created Institute for Excellence in Writing, the best way to have a writer later on down the road is to have read to them for years. Your voice inflection, the vocabulary, the stories, and you get a list of like classic children's literature. And they'll even do it by like kindergarten to second, 4th to 6th, and you start reading to them. And so I would say in addition to the letters and the numbers, and of course the religion, however you're going to handle that, just read. Go to the library, check out all sorts of beautiful picture books, and look at them with her and read to her. It's huge at this age.
I remember in kindergarten with one of mine, our math, and she's actually my high math kid now. And I look back to how it started and I'm like, how did that happen? But like, I remember like even getting chicken nuggets and she was so little, but she's like, if I ate, 3, I'd have 3 left. And she like made math out of everything. And now it makes sense now seeing her in her math, but she may just be a student led in, math, and that actually will be easy for you, because you can do all story problems. You don't have to do like that worksheet, that book work in kindergarten.
Games, all she needs are her ABCs and 0 to 100.
Like, she actually already knows all of those.
Yeah. So she's probably ahead of the game. And thinking of your personality a little bit, Amber, I wouldn't doubt it that she's like, you're engaging with her. You're already playing games to teach her these things. Like you could
Her
probably
voc-
go on that
and
path.
her vocabulary is above because I've never baby talked. I just talked to her, and I have a high vocabulary. So like everybody's like, she's so smart. I just talk to her, and we read every day. We read at least 2 books a day. We just, that was one of her fears. She thought I was going to stop reading to her.
Aw.
So I told her, no, will have 3 books every night. Mommy, Daddy, and Annabelle. So,
I
I
know.
know.
I still read to my 12-year-old who has a very high reading level, and she reads books like crazy, but I still read aloud to her
Absolutely.
because she likes it and I like it, and I know how important it is. And I told her, I said, I don't care if you're 20 years old, I'll read to you if you want me to. So yeah, don't sweat kindergarten. And just to reiterate, I know a lot of us have already said this, but don't feel like you need to start school the day after Labor Day. You know, just give yourself some grace and give yourself some time, and because you don't want to start, you know, feeling overwhelmed, because then your kid's going to feel overwhelmed. So we haven't even finished last school year yet, so we got to do that first.
Well, I would say your kids are so well educated though, Jen. Like they're probably ahead of the game anyways, going into the year.
I mean, yeah, but I'm a task oriented person, so I do need to finish. I need to finish for myself.
I'm just saying it's all good. So, okay, Leanne, did you have any more questions that maybe something was sparked to this? And then we'll probably close out. I don't know how long it's been.
You know, really where I'm kind of stuck at with my kids is just choosing a curriculum. I have 2 different learners, and they're both strong in opposite subjects. So
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, my daughter is excellent reader and a writer, but is not interested in math. My son is opposite with reading. He's a good writer, but he doesn't care for writing. He's excellent with math. He's excellent with vocabulary. He can memorize anything. So he uses that, you know, to his benefit.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel that, okay, I've been looking at, for example, Singapore math. And it's a little bit more advanced. There was an example where 2nd graders are learning multiplication, whereas in the public school, we didn't start multiplication until 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be good for my son. He is advanced in the math department, but not for my daughter. So I feel I would have to do another one I looked at possibly for her would be teaching textbooks for her. And I feel kind of torn with going with like an all-in-one program that has everything built in, or piecing it together to gear it more towards their strengths and weaknesses. So I'm very confused with curriculum. So I kind of would like to talk to someone, go over what they know of curriculum to give me a little bit more insight on what to choose and what would be best for my 2 opposite learners that I have.
So let me ask you a quick question. What do you feel like your goal is for this year? Are you like, I'm going to go into homeschooling this year, but I just want to do this year, make the most of it, and then we're going to go back to public school? Or maybe I'm going to give homeschooling a try this year and I might stick it out? Or like, I'm going to start homeschooling?
Well, I have been tossing around homeschooling for a few years. My daughter, she has not liked school. She's never liked kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, or 3rd grade. She expected me to homeschool her forever. We did the close in March, and she did much better. She excelled with the virtual learning because I was there teaching her. My son is very social. He likes school. He does well at school. He does well with the classroom environment of, okay, it's math time right now, or it's science time right now. At home, he did struggle with the virtual, just gaining his
Motivated.
attention, his focus to do the work.
Mhm.
But bottom line for me, I feel like my children don't have a passion or a love of learning. I think that got lost
Yeah.
somewhere with going to school. There's a very big disconnect with what they're teaching in school and what I'm aware of what they're teaching in school. I feel as though I can be almost non-existent in their education by putting them in school. I have to search for the information that they're learning in school. I save all their school paperwork and I'm like, okay, what are you doing in school? And I don't like being the last to know about their education. And then to see on top of it that they don't want to engage in learning. They don't want to open up a book and read about the Arawak tribe. You know, they just see it as work
Right.
and not as fun and exciting. So I feel homeschool, we could, you know, make learning fun again for them, make it engaging for them again, and not just get good grades and that's it.
Right.
So I want to see like more of a transition with my kids. If this works well for my kid, definitely we will continue it. I want what's best for my kids and where they're excelling. If my son, like I said, he had more of a struggle with the virtual, being at home, you know, he had a harder time writing a paragraph about even journaling he would struggle with. He just would stare off into space a little bit. You know, he wants to go jump and run and all that kind of stuff. So with him, we'll see how he does with homeschool. I'd like to see if it benefits him or not. I think it'll do better for my daughter. I'm not so sure about my son. But I don't want to go with public right now or anything like that. I want structure. I want to know what we're doing every day. I don't want to go to school for 1 week and then have to be home for 2 weeks and then we're going to do virtual. Nope, we're going to do in person. I don't want to, school's already chaotic enough. I don't want to do more of that at all.
Sure. Sure.
So that's kind of where we're at as a family.
Okay. Awesome. So it's awesome that your husband's been here the entire time.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to say about all this too.
Yeah. You get a whole round of applause for that one. So question to you. Do you have an interest in any particular subject, or did you in high school or middle school or anything like that? I really love this subject.
I'm very good in history, science, biology. I was very good in those subjects. My husband is excellent in math.
That was my biggest one.
Math,
Yeah.
yeah. He was good at math. But I mean, I
Math
did
and language arts.
decent with all the subjects. I think math would be my most subject that I'm not interested in. But I followed right along with my son with his Common Core and everything, and I have no problem with it so far.
So the reason I ask is because I'm sorry, what's your name, Leanna's husband?
I'm Adam. Nice to meet you guys.
Okay,
Adam.
yeah, nice to meet you. Sorry we took so long to kind of identify.
Oh, that's okay.
So Adam, so you said math and language arts was your thing?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Because math, you can probably, you know, it's so special to have a dad who's involved in a young boy's life, because you are going to be a bigger influence than anyone in his life. And if you are able to help him with either, especially if he struggles in language arts, and you show that you have an interest in it, or you have a different angle than him, you will probably be able to help him out of some of those slumps. So I just kind of wanted to note that a little bit. And then, you know, where your wife is weak, you can pick up, and where you're weak, your wife can pick up. And it doesn't matter what time of day it is. You know, if you worked a long day, you know, you can wait till the weekend for like the hardcore stuff. Because a lot of curriculum, that seems to me, you do a new material, you run a new material, and then you practice that material, right? So for instance, my husband was like, can I teach history? I'm like, yes, absolutely. I'm like, okay, when are you going to do this? You work 8 to 8, Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday. So I'm like, you're teaching on Sunday. So I was like, all right, we'll just get Sunday. You're going to do the lesson with the kids. You're going to do the reading. And then during the week, I'll do the worksheets with them. I'll go over the material that you taught them on that Sunday. So that he's involved with it too. And that's a little boy who said it. Already stuff is crazy. That's to show him, wow, you can still learn when you're 40 years old. And that's going to instill that learning can still be exciting. So I kind of wanted to put that out there for you guys. Also, your daughter is opposite of your son, right? And your son can help your daughter learn the material, kind of like Jennifer was saying earlier with one kid. And then your daughter, she might not be able to teach your son, but maybe, it depends on where she's at. But she might just be able to encourage him. Look what there's today. Maybe it'll get him a little bit excited on the front of learning the stuff he doesn't want to do so much. So
She loves to read a book to anyone willing to listen. So she follows him around.
Oh my gosh.
that's incredible. Yeah, especially for boys. I feel like that's a little more uncommon.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I want to throw it to you, Leanne. You might want to check out Saxon.
That's another one.
It's very challenging, but if he's good in math, a lot of people don't like it because if they're not good at math or if they don't like math, it can be difficult. But I've had great success with that, and you can actually buy DVDs where they teach lesson, so that on a day when I'm busy, I can just say, listen to your lesson, and then you can always listen too. I'm good through algebra. After algebra, I listen to the lesson before. So they can listen every single day, and there's actually a live teacher who's, teaching them on the board or whatever, and they're just watching it. But it's incremental. It's little nuggets every day, but it builds, and it's the whole purpose is mastery. They say not memorization, mastery. It's mastering the material. So anyway, if he's a math kid, you might want to just look at it.
Right, and
Well, like you mentioned, it has a program where he logs on and someone's teaching it to him.
Oh, no, not at all. This is all done at home. You put the CD-ROM in, and you can watch the lesson. So you're
that's
record lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, something like that would be more engaging to him, is a pre-recorded, or if I sat down and tried to teach him how to do the math, I think that would be a little bit more different. Whereas like the Saxon math, I've seen like some where you can put in a CD-ROM and it'll teach the lesson for you.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of helpful for my son.
And then in the upper level, like in Algebra 2, what I would do is just sit and listen to, so that I wasn't going to teach it, but if he had a problem, I could look at it, and they have the answer key with the detail, and I could always manage through it. So I would just spend the 15 minutes listening to the lesson, so that a few days or weeks later on a test, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, and I could look at the answer and figure it out. Your dad was good at math.
Yeah. Yes, the Saxon math is another one that I have written down for him to look at. So.
And I have a thing about your daughter, struggling more with math, and that's what we have going on. We have some kids who are in the higher, the curriculums like teaching textbooks and like Saxon to like same grade level. So like for kids who struggle with math, they're not teaching textbooks because that's where they're going to grow and feel successful. On my one daughter, she has fetal alcohol, and there is no way that any doctor would tell her to do she's doing it well, because lower program. It's not like significantly lower. Grade level, would you say?
Yeah.
Grade level.
I think it's more of probably grade level doesn't just. It's not as challenging. So you're still ready for it. Not so rigorous.
Yes, there's something more gentle about it.
Yes.
And she has had so much success, and that's what I'm using through the end, because she's doing well, and she's getting to do it herself, and she's doing so many good things. But I don't want to do my other daughters. Same grade level, two very different ways of approaching it.
Okay.
And that's totally okay.
Okay.
Absolutely. You don't make
homeschooling.
you don't have to make them rise up to your other child's level at
No.
any point ever.
Never. And they're
Right.
not going to go into STEM. Some kids
Yeah.
aren't going to go into STEM. So why
Right.
would you torture them with
Yeah,
this
it's
very
torture, yeah.
rigorous math? Let them challenge themselves in the writing and the,
And-
the other things that they love, where they can really excel and grow.
And that's what I
learn,
want. Is to keep them, to love learning. They have to do the things that they're strong at and good at. And I don't want to try to make my daughter at the same level as my son is with math. I'm not going to try to force that. It'll just make her miserable, so that's where I'm like, I think I got to do a couple different curriculums. So I got to know even more.
I would say start with math, because you kind of want to start that at the beginning of the school year, because there's, X amount of lessons. So you're going to be making it up. Other things you can cut out or you can shorten. But I would maybe a great place to start to just a math curriculum. And then you'll feel accomplished and you'll feel confident, because
Yeah.
it's like,
Give
okay, I
yourself
got
like
a big one out of the way.
Yeah, like, you just make one check mark on your list. And you're like, this one check mark. Just so you yourself have that confidence, like, you're doing this one subject very well. You know what I mean? And that's how you start it out for yourself.
That makes sense. I'm trying to do all of it at once.
Yes.
Yeah.
Common.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That alleviates a little bit there. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I guess that about wraps it up, unless you guys had anything pressing. I will try to take this video, what I recorded, because I kind of missed the entire the introductions a little bit. But I'll open it up on YouTube. I'll copy the link and put it in the Christian Arts Academy page. So if you wanted to go back over it, or Amber, you said you wanted to get it to your husband, you can just open it from that page. It'll be really easy to find that way. Or you can probably even look it up on YouTube, because it's just Christian Arts. I couldn't get the Academy for whatever reason on YouTube. So that's something you can look up too. Okay?
And real quick too, you said you do classical, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, so if anybody wants to talk more about any different ways of doing classical too, I'm more than happy to talk about it. I love talking about it now.
Yeah.
It makes me excited.
Yeah.
And something you can even do too is bringing, if you're up for it at some point, because one thing you'll see too that's a good sign. When homeschool moms are passionate, they want to talk, they want to learn, they want to help teach and mentor or share wisdom and share what we did wrong. And there's a passion. We want to learn too. So you want to get together at some point and look at, okay, well, for instance, show me it. Show me what it would look like. What does that look
That
like?
practical application.
Yeah, when you can
I
open up
miss
books
that,
and
yeah.
look and say, okay, now you show how we do that. I can totally what they're doing using books or whatever. I actually find technology difficult, so it's so convenient. But I'd much rather be sitting down at a table together with a cup of coffee and a bunch of books, So I'm definitely open to doing that.
And for those who don't know too, Classical Conversations has a community element. We do meet in person with classical settings. It's not the same as public, but just so you guys know that there is a community element in that.
Yeah. There's actually quite a few communities out there, if anyone was wondering. I'm probably going to be a part of a homeschool group that meets every other Friday. There's ones that meet every week. So there's lots of options, and some of them, like Classical Conversations, they meet weekly. So that's helpful too. Okay. Any last minute comments before I hit the button?
I think we're good.
Okay, awesome.
No.
Well,
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
thank you for coming, and
Yes.
feel free to message me if you have any more questions, and I'll get that link out. God bless you guys.
All right. Thank you. You too. Good night.
Good night.
And
This is really